Hi, I'm Byron, and I'm going to be looking at DOHC and SOHC engines and discussing their advantages and disadvantages. What is DOHC and what is SOHC? DOHC stands for Dual Overhead Cam. This means that it has two cams. One is for the intake valves and the other is for the exhaust valves. Most DOHCs have 4 valves per cylinder, where each camshaft operates 2 of the valves. One camshaft handles the intake valves and one handles the exhaust valves. As you can see, one camshaft is operating the exhaust valves and the other camshaft is operating the intake valves. SOHC stands for Single Overhead Cam. This means that it has just one camshaft for the engine and runs both the intake and exhaust valves, usually with rocker arms. Most SOHCs have 2 valves per cylinder, but can have as many as DOHC engines do. This video doesn't have the cool music like the other one does though. As you can see, the camshaft is moving the rocker arms to open up the exhaust and intake valves. These can be on any type of engine, and when using an inline engine, usually means there is no need for push rods, so there are less moving parts and less inertial forces. My job is to discuss the relative merits of using DOHC valve arrangements over SOHC systems, and to identify the advantages and disadvantages. I'm mainly going to be comparing a 4 valve per cylinder DOHC to a 2 valve per cylinder SOHC. This is because for an SOHC engine to have 4 valves per cylinder or more, it means a more complicated setup compared to a DOHC engine with the same amount of valves per cylinder. Dual overhead cam has some advantages over single overhead cam. When you look at the valve arrangements, 4 valves per cylinder instead of 2 is ideal. This is because a larger portion of the engine area can be used to let air in and exhaust out. When more air enters the engine, the air can produce more power, and it wastes less power if it is easier to pump exhaust out of the cylinder. At higher RPMs and engine speeds, the engine is pumping a lot of air through the cylinder, so having 4 valves per cylinder allows the engine to produce more power at the higher speeds due to being able to get more air-fuel mixture in. Dual overhead cam engines also allow the spark plug to be placed right in the middle of the combustion chamber. This promotes efficient combustion. With single overhead cam, the camshaft is usually in the middle of the head, because it has to drive both the intake and exhaust valves, robbing the spark plug of its optimal location. At higher speeds, a single overhead cam 2 valve per cylinder engine reaches its peak RPM faster and has to switch up to the next gear, where the dual overhead cam engine continues making more power at the top end of the power band. It is a lot easier to fine-tune the specific intake and exhaust profiles, and the cams can be timed independently of each other. It also makes things like VTEC, VVT, and other variations of independent valve timing possible. Single overhead cam has a lot of pros over dual overhead cam though, and the main reason to use a DOHC is to drive more valves per cylinder. But an SOHC engine can drive as many valves per cylinder as a DOHC engine. This just leaves the DOHC with extra weight and with more cost, which can eventually become a burden instead. It also takes a lot more to drive two camshafts. If the valve train is heavy, which it is in a DOHC engine, when the camshaft lifts, the valve train will just keep going up until the valve spring catches it. This is called valve float. You can overcome this with stronger springs though, but stronger springs means heavier springs, and this extra weight increases the power requirements to open the valve. As I've mentioned earlier, an SOHC engine is a lot lighter than a DOHC engine. Because it is a lot lighter, it means there is less pressure on the valve train. It also has less parts, such as less cam belts and less valves. This means that it is a lot cheaper to produce. And because it has less parts, it's lighter and smaller. It is a lot easier and cheaper to service this as well. It also has more low-end power due to it being lighter than a DOHC engine. To conclude, depending on what you are looking for in your car, depends on what is better for you. If you are looking for a cheaper engine and not looking for power, then an SOHC engine is more mechanically cheaper and has less moving parts than a DOHC. It also has less valve float, it is cheaper to service and to produce, and has more low-end power. It is also lighter. A DOHC engine, on the other hand, is more powerful, has more efficient burning, and has higher RPM at the high end as well. If you're looking for a more powerful engine, then a DOHC engine could be better for you. Me personally though, I'm going to be sticking to an SOHC. Thanks.